If you were stuck in Disneyland for prisoners where you're forced to compete in games to the death, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the death prison in Deadman Wonderland. This student is about to see everyone he knows brutally die. Ganta here is a small-town kid living like any normal teenager. However, his life is about to change forever. Relaxing with his friends, this school day is going like any other, and that's when he hears a creepy song from outside the building. He turns his head and notices a strange figure floating outside the window. Suddenly, it sends a shockwave through the classroom, killing everyone in sight. Realizing he's the only one still alive, he looks up and sees the strange figure holding his best friend's head in the air, with her body nowhere to be seen. This red man closes in on scared little Ganta, pushing a mysterious diamond into Ganta's chest, causing him to pass out. This is terrifying. That creepy smile makes me think that Red Man enjoyed killing all of our friends, and despite all this, I think we could have gotten out of this situation with some superhuman reflexes at our disposal. Now, it's not every day we see some crazed-looking demon floating outside our classroom, but in Japan, you never know what can happen. As we can see, that blast was pretty damn strong, and left everyone dead. But if it were me, there might be a slim chance we could have survived. And here's how. If I was one of these students who wasn't protected by plot armor, I would have run towards the blast, lying down against the wall underneath the exposed windows, as this will be our best bet to making it out alive. There's no time to open the doors and run like hell, so this is literally our only option. The blast itself was strong, but it wasn't strong enough to take out the actual building structure itself. This makes me suspect that this situation could be dealt with something similar to a bomb blast. The first thing we want to avoid is any flying debris attacking our pretty faces, and particularly me, because I am gorgeous. And it will also help subdue the effects of the shockwave emitted from the blast. The blast also looked like it had the blast radius of a couple grenades. And knowing that just one military-issued standard M67 grenade has a kill radius of between 5 and 15 meters, that means there's no way in hell that over 30 of these kids are making it out of that classroom in time with an explosion such as this. So rather than run, stay low, people. Ganta wakes up in the hospital to a terrifying surprise. He's now being charged with the gruesome murder of all of his classmates. And if that wasn't bad enough, somehow there's video evidence showing the police that he committed the murders. This seals Ganta's fate as the police send him to the most deadly prison in all of Japan, Deadman Wonderland, a prison theme park designed for tourists to come watch prisoners tear each other apart in horrifying death games. But Ganta is about to find out that there's more in store for him than he could ever imagine. At orientation, Ganta learns how the prison works, its scary rules, and terrifying punishments. This is also where he meets a strange girl called Shiro, who reminds Ganta of his dead classmate. The two become friends as she shows Ganta around the prison, but this is a prison and nowhere is safe. And so Ganta almost immediately gets himself into a fight. Suddenly, an explosion comes from the top of the prison tower. A massive fireball comes falling down and there's nowhere to run. That's when Ganta here activates his special abilities for the very first time, making a gigantic force field and saving both him and Shiro in the process. Sometime later, Ganta here wakes up with no idea of what just happened. The doctor here tells him of these prison collars they're forced to wear, providing GPS data. Not only that, the collar is constantly seeping poison into their bodies. This means that every prisoner is on a time limit, and if they don't eat an anti-poison candy every 3 days, they will die. But unfortunately for Ganta, he can't find his candy to save his own life. Ganta meets this new guy called Yo, and he tells Ganta about a dog race show taking place very soon, which is a show where participants get a free red bean bun and the winner gets prison credits, meaning that Ganta can buy himself another life-saving candy and avoid dying if he wins. With no other options and the only way to survive is by joining a game that is looking to savagely kill you, Ganta signs up for the money and the tasty red bean bun. We need to address the whole poison dog collar thing. What are we, pets? The fact of the matter is that our collars deliver poison to us on a consistent basis, and that makes me believe that it can only be done through some sort of absorbent patch, much like how a nicotine patch works. The fact is, we can't rid the poison out of our systems if we don't know what poison is being used. So I'd ask around for starters, maybe schmooze a nurse, for example, and see if anyone knows anything more about our collars. And I say poison and not venom, as venom can only be injected via a needle, bite, or sting due to its mixture of large and small molecules, which means we have some big problems. But whatever the case, we need to get a move move on. We don't seem to have any side effects from poisoning yet, like nausea, seizures, or trouble breathing, but I wouldn't rely on no damn candy to feel better, sugar-free or not, as a constant prolonged exposure to poison can have some permanent side effects. Ganta at the races gathers with everyone else and they kick off, as they near the first guillotine challenge in the race, crossing a pair of swinging guillotines. Ganta then gets a nasty surprise by getting cut immediately, realizing the blades are real, and that if he isn't careful, he could get chopped in half right here. Blood and guts follow as Ganta navigates his way through this death track. People die left and right as prisoners and viewers scream in terror and excitement. It's a bloodbath. Except for Shiro, who isn't terrified, as she and Ganta enter the bungee jump of death, as she pushes Ganta off the podium with her as they fall to their near deaths, barely avoiding being splattered onto the ground. They then move on to the poof with archery challenge. Ganta runs over a bridge as cute little owl archers try and kill him with arrows, but luckily Shiro cleverly manages to help Ganta avoid all of the arrows, as they clumsily make their way through this death track, but not before jumping over the bouncing balls track right above a sea of liquid acid. Body parts fly everywhere as prisoners continue to get brutally murdered. Past the spiky dodgeballs, tumbling bridges, and actual guillotines and flaming fires, Ganta and Shiro finally make it to the last challenge, the Battle Royale, where the last challenger to hold the Deadman ball at the end is to be declared the winner. Ganta and Shiro put up a good fight as they manage to escape the falling panels. Lots of limber movements and quick reflexes almost help Ganta win the game, but at the last second, he has to choose between winning the game and saving Shiro from certain death. And so he chooses to save Shiro, ending the dog race with no winner. Okay, Shiro did do most of the heavy lifting in the race, but we have something that no one else has, Shiro herself. And this tall glass of Japanese milk here is seemingly invincible to dying, which means we're going to use her powers of invincibility to keep us safe. Now, for the first challenge, Shiro isn't needed, but what we do need is to slow the hell down, since we don't seem to have a time limit. Instead of running recklessly through the swinging axes, which is what everyone wants, I would crawl through the center of the pathway to reach the other side. As we can see, the axes make enough of a gap for Ganta's tiny frame to crawl through without a problem. Now he can avoid getting a nasty cut and rest easy knowing that he's not going to bleed out anytime soon. For the long bungee rope, where you had to pick between the longer or shorter rope, we need to get a little more crafty. From the look of Ganta's fall, he fell for a near 2 seconds. Calculating the speed of gravity times the 2-second fall that Ganta endured means that we are roughly 64 feet up in the air, at least 3 times the height of a survivable drop. This means we would need some way to break our fall. Since Shiro doesn't care about her life, I'd be the best worst scumbag and I would use her to our advantage. You're welcome. I'd simply steal Shiro's cord and attach it to my harness along with the second cord, and then jump. This way, as I fall, the shorter rope, aka the safer rope, due to its length, would be the first rope to tighten up, breaking my fall just before hitting the ground, landing safely. With the final boss, there's no way we can win head-on, and this guy doesn't seem that smart, so I would use his ego against him to make him super overly confident and then force his hand by making him super mad and charge at us like a matador to a bull before dodging his charge, making him fall to his death. Later at his cell, Ganta, without any candy, sits sadly as he counts the hours until poison kills him. As without any prison candy, he is surely going to die. Fortunately, his new prison friend from earlier, Yo, enters and offers him a new candy that he has. This cheers Ganta up, and the two boys head out to get some ice cream to celebrate. However, their time to celebrate is short-lived, as Ganta sees the terrifying Red Man, who smiles wide as he readies to kill more people, and he blasts everyone in the courtyard. This angers Ganta, who, without realizing, uses his new powers against Redman, chasing him away in the process and causing Ganta to suddenly pass out. Ganta later wakes up and finally realizes that he has become the monster he hoped to kill, finally realizing his true powers. He also begins to hear about rumors of a mysterious place hidden within the prison called G-Block, where the terrifying Redman may be located. Wasting no time, Ganta sets out to find G-Block by himself, and on the way runs into Shiro, who happens to know where G-Block is and sets out to show him the way. They also run into Yo on the way there as well, but the party stops when they come face to face with a murderous security robot who begins to chase them down to kill them. Missiles start flying as the gang finally reaches G-Block, where Shiro is almost killed by the security robot but is saved by Cool Guy. In shock, Ganta tries to fight this mysterious Cool Guy, who Ganta thinks is the Red Man who killed his classmates. However, Cool Guy doesn't know just what the hell Ganta is talking about and tells him that there are hundreds of superpowered people within G-Block with similar powers to to him and Ganta. We also finally learn that Ganta's powers require his blood to work, and that he needs to bleed first before being able to activate his powers. Their conversation is cut short as some prison guards find them and tuck them into bed, so to speak. Hold on, Shiro here seemingly knows everything about this place and has the luck of a black cat with 4-leaf clovers. So we need to start thinking of her as the muscle around here, as we've seen her strength, durability, and agility in action, especially at those death games. And since she hasn't been killed by her own stupidity yet, and until we figure out our powers better, I would play her like a fiddle and charm my way to her pretty little heart and order her to dismantle the security robot right after Yo's sticky fingers took it out earlier. And speaking of dying, Cool Guy here, while seemingly looking like a douche, is our best bet in staying alive and figuring out more information about this place. And as much as I'd like to slice his carotid arteries with a surgeon's scalpel Hannibal style, we need to play it cool and act as weak and feeble as possible because I'm a damsel in distress. Cool Guy is the only one who we know in G-Block and someone who looks like he knows how to use his powers, which is why we need to befriend him and do our best not to piss him off until we figure out our powers more. In fact, maybe we could learn a thing or two from him. I'd charm the skinny jeans right out of him and get him over to our side ASAP. Maybe even having him look into our poison collars more. He's a certified supervillain, which means he'll know others like him and maybe even Redman. So let's use him to our advantage. Ganta wakes up to find himself being trapped and examined by the promoter of the prison, the same guy who also acted as our fake lawyer, planting false evidence against Ganta, including that fake video, and who got Ganta sent to prison. This is where we learn that this promoter uses this prison as a place to experiment on people, surgically implanting the seed of sin into their body and eventually turning them into dead men, who then compete in superhero-like death games. The next day, Ganta is forced to fight against Cool Guy in a death match, but struggles to beat him due to blood loss. We find out that this means Ganta can't shoot his blood too much, as just like any normal person, too much blood loss can lead to anemia and a loss of function, which sucks for Ganta because Cool Guy's powers are simply terrifying. But luckily Ganta manages to pull a fast one on Cool Guy and defeats him, barely winning the match. Ganta was pretty stupid to go in as unprepared as he did. We know blood is the main driving force behind all of this, so we should start optimizing our blood glucose levels like actual athletes, and to make sure that we can function optimally throughout the match. As we know, glucose is a type of sugar that our body gets from foods and uses for energy, and low blood sugar levels can cause a variety of problems, like weakness, lightheadedness, and dizziness. This is why I would try to increase our blood sugar levels before a death match, making sure our body has a steady state of energy throughout without getting depleted. Just like a heavy-duty training session at the gym, before a death match, I would fuel up with a meal made up of fast-acting carbohydrates, around 15 to 30 grams, which can come from fruit juice, white rice, or even some kids' cereal. Fast-acting carbs will help us raise our blood sugar levels the fastest, keeping our levels elevated during our death match. Also, why is Ganta shooting his blood? You are literally giving away your power. If Ganta is maybe 150 pounds and shooting a couple of shots of his Ganta gun makes him dizzy, this means that he is losing between 15 to 30% of his body's total blood, meaning every time Ganta fires his Ganta gun, he wastes 10 ounces of his precious blood. That's a lot. He should really try changing to a blood sword or some blood boxing gloves or something. Ganta wakes up later and eats his candy as he hears a girl scream for her dear life. Being the oh so freaking noble one, Ganta rushes to go save her, and we find out that this girl is another dead man with powers who is a little bit crazy. But turns out Ganta loves crazy, and he immediately takes a liking to this crazy girl as she convinces him to run away with her. And of course, love-struck Ganta falls for it and leads her out into the hallway as Crazy Girl accidentally injures Ganta's leg, just as they run into some prison guards. And as fate would have it, these two are to face each other in a death match. The next day, they arrive in the Grand Cage. But as it turns out, Crazy Girl here is a complete psychopath. She set Ganta up by injuring his leg the day before, meaning his chances of beating her are slim to none. Ganta doesn't have time to react, however, as Yo shows up and reveals that he's the brother of the Crazy Girl. In the midst of all of the twists and turns, and Crazy Girl even managing to attack her her own brother. Ganta finally defeats her and puts an end to it all. After the match, he makes peace with Crazy Girl and bumps into Cool Guy, who tells him that he needs to learn more attack moves than just using his Ganta gun. Later on, Ganta bumps into White-Haired Girl, who tells him that she's part of a group of deadmen that are planning to escape and that they want Ganta to join them. At their bar headquarters, we also meet the leader of this group, Scarfy, and that's when Deadman killer Rockstar drops by, along with a beaten-up Yo, and takes out everybody with his special guitar gun. Suddenly, Shiro appears out of nowhere and breaks Rockstar's gun, chasing him away. Ganta is then introduced to the entire Resistance gang of deadmen, all of whom plan to escape. They have a bar in prison, like that is awesome, but why didn't they put some type of little security system at the very least right outside of their bar? I mean, if this is your base of operations, I would have at least had some security guys outside when discussing plans. And from the looks of things, Rockstar's eyes are not shielded, which means we could try to blind him temporarily at least. As with any type of chemical like alcohol in the eye, this can cause corrosive effects to occur. This means if we use any 20 proof or more alcohol like vodka, this could cause corneal abrasions and eye scarring, which can result in loss of vision and even blindness in some cases. So basically, I would make a run to the bar, find some strong vodka, and then fling it all over Rockstar's face, giving us enough of a head start to either jump him, tackle him, or make ourselves bleed to use our Deadman powers against him before he has the chance to use that rifle again. Or if anyone had a lighter, we could have simply done it like the Finnish did with their invention way back and throw some Molotov cocktails at him. Meeting all the members, Ganta visits the brains behind the whole operation, Mr. Smart Guy. He reveals to Ganta that the plan is to escape during the prison's inspection week, when the human rights authorities will be conducting a visit into the prison. This is a week when the prison will be forced to act all nice and sweet and won't be doing any death game shows. This makes it the perfect time to escape. That is, if they can first take out that special group of prison guards known as the Undertakers. These guys are the worst of the prison guards, who specialize in killing dead men. Ganta then informs the group that his powers didn't work against Rockstar earlier, which no one believes, as Smart Guy shows them footage showing Rockstar clearly dodging Ganta's blood bullet. But they don't realize that this was their biggest mistake, and one that will cost them everything. With no one believing him, Ganta angrily storms out and runs into Cool Guy, where he learns more about the Deadman group and their leader, Scarfy. We also find out more about Scarfy's tragic past and the grudge to kill Rockstar, who murdered his pregnant wife years earlier. Feeling bad, Ganta decides to join in on the group. Now, the breakout plan is on. Okay, this seems sweet and all, but trusting the leadership of a guy with a huge chip on his shoulder and something to prove is a huge red flag. Scarfy's intentions may be good, but like any good leader, I can't rely on him to ensure that he makes the right decisions based on logic. If this is personal for him, which it is, he may slip up and make moves out of emotion, certainly endangering us even further and risking the whole plan in the process. To ensure the integrity of this plan, we ought to make sure someone else is in charge, with way less invested feelings in this situation, as their judgment is a lot less likely to get clouded as Scarfy's is. This is going to cost them more than they realize. The group goes back over the plan with the intent to show the world what Deadman Wonderland really is. The plan is to sneak out a data chip containing a bunch of illegal things that the prison has done. The group decides to split into two groups during the alarms to confuse the guards, with one group going to take over the control room and Ganta's group heading towards the service elevators that lead to the exit of the prison. Ganta's group will also be carrying the data chip with them. The group then sets out. Alarm bells go off as they run into another one of those pesky security robots who nearly takes out the bridge and savagely kills another dead man, forcing White-Haired Girl to sacrifice herself in the process. The group finally reaches the elevator, and after waiting for what seems like forever, the elevators finally open up. The gang rushes up only to meet Rockstar and his Undertaker army. Turns out this was a trap all along. Cornered and scared, the group tries to fight back but fails, as their Deadman powers don't seem to work against the Undertaker's suit, which means Ganta was right earlier about Rockstar. It's a slaughterhouse as deadmen get their heads chopped off and blood spills everywhere, resulting in almost every single dead man dying. Rockstar then leaves the last few alive, as he has bigger plans. To add insult to injury, Shiro finally shows up randomly and steals the data chip from Ganta and destroys it in the process. Now, their only piece of evidence against Deadman Wonderland is gone, leaving the defeated Deadman survivors to retreat back to the bar. Well, that's just great. Not only did Shiro destroy our only evidence, but somebody clearly betrayed us, and this group of capable people Deadman did everything wrong. They could have avoided the security robot entirely if they sealed off the door entrance to the bridge after they went through it. In fact, I would have sealed off every room as we made our exit. We're not coming back, so there was no reason not to destroy at least parts of our escape route as we cleared every room. This could have prevented any robots and guards from following us, or at least slowed them down and kept everyone alive. And speaking of entrances, their only escape plan was through one elevator and one exit, which by itself is way too risky and loud. Which is to not say a loud and proud prison escape is invalid, as there are many examples of famous loud prison escapes, like the one done by the famous Texas 7, who during a prison escape took 16 prisoners hostage and escaped a maximum security prison. However, in this case, I think it would have been better to be more subtle about it. Like Ronaldo Silva, a famous man who once attempted to escape a Brazilian prison by dressing up as his wife. It's a good pastime, you should try it. With that just being said, I'm not saying we should dress up as our wives, but I think we would have had an easier time of getting through the prison by dressing up as the prison security personnel. Hell, I would have seen if there was any way we could have stolen an Undertaker uniform, as that would have allowed us to hide our faces and would have made for a much quieter and easier escape. And speaking of which, trying to sneak out over 15 dead men was too risky. If their plan was to reveal to the world the horrors surrounding this prison, then I would have brought only 1 or 2 dead men with me to escape, along with the data chip. It's harsh, I know, but it was unreasonable to expect everyone to make it out of a high security prison without some casualties or problems. Or we could have even given the data chip to the government officials who were already within the prison for inspection week. Like, Ganta, you could have done this prison escape so much better. The group sits defeated in the bar, just as white-haired girl shows up from the dead, and looks like all is not over just yet, as she hasn't given up and has another plan up her non-existent sleeve. Suddenly, Mr. Smart Guy shows up and we find out that he was working with Rockstar, editing the fake video of Ganta missing his shot, planting a bomb in the data chip meant to kill all the dead men and betray Scarfy, who is now missing. Suddenly, more Undertakers show up to kill all the dead men, but luckily Cool Guy springs up and tries to cut the Undertaker suits but fails, as Smart Guy reveals to us that the Undertaker suits are made of oxidizing accelerators that conduct an ultra-high pressure of 20 pascals worth of shielding, meaning the Undertakers are able to disable any dead man powers. But Cool Guy, just like his abs, won't quit and creates a new trick up his sexy sleeve using a never-before-seen special attack, a supersonic blade, cutting through the Undertaker suits and weapons at the speed of sound. Let's take a look at the Undertaker suits really quick. These guys are absolute beasts, but we need to figure out how their armor works really fast. Basically, 1 megapascal is equal to about 145 pounds of pressure per square inch, meaning that the Undertaker suits and weapons have around 2,900 pounds of pressure shielding per square inch. This type of shielding is also achieved by what is known as a worm eater, a type of small device that is capable of stopping the powers of dead men by turning their solid attacks into ordinary liquid. This is how their armor works. By using his deadman powers at the speed of sound, Cool Guy was able to cut through the Undertaker suits without interference from the worm eater technology, which means this is the way that we beat them. This makes me wonder, how come no one has ever bothered to talk to Cool Guy before? He's clearly one of the strongest dead men here and figured out how to beat the Undertakers. The least we could have done is gotten his feedback on this plan before starting it. Also, asking Cool Guy to train them to beat the Undertakers is not a bad idea. I'm just saying they should have involved him in the plan in some way, ideally even convincing him to go along with them. And of course, a prisoner in a prison betrayed us, shocker, and as a leader, Scarfy should have double-checked the plan and he should have checked if the data chip had anything in it or not. Despite how nice everyone is, we are in a prison after all, and they are prisoners, and I doubt everyone here is as innocent and pure like Ganta. After Cool Guy defeats the Undertakers, he declines the offer from Ganta's group to escape, thinking he belongs in prison like the savage stud that he is. However, he does agree to help train Ganta for what's to come. Cool Guy helps him upgrade his Ganta gun ability to get it to shoot faster than the speed of sound, which Ganta soon learns, and just in the nick of time too, as Ganta is about to be tested to his absolute limit in just a few moments. Suddenly, he sees on TV that white-haired girl and Shiro have been kidnapped by Rockstar and are being held hostage at the Undertaker's headquarters. Wasting no time, Ganta sets off to find their base, eventually reaching it. However, he now faces a new problem, as Ganta suddenly becomes dizzy and is already at his limit. Looks like somebody has been forgetting to eat his candy. Dizzy and only half awake, Ganta barely manages to take out most of the Undertakers as Rockstar reveals a destroyed and soulless Scarfy, now turned evil and vengeful. He's alive, but might as well be dead, and he now claims life means nothing and nothing matters. matters. Scarfy, who's clearly lost his mind at this point, tries to beat up Shiro as a weakened Ganta protects her and gets himself and white-haired girl to talk some sense into him. This seems to work, however, he gets shot in the chest by Rockstar, and this causes Ganta to freak out, as he then pulls out his new uber-cool superhero move and uses his famous and newly improved Ganta gun to shoot and kill Rockstar, firing his blood gun at supersonic speed, blowing more than a whole couple of holes into Rockstar for the very last time. Alright, we did it, but Ganta yet again failed to plan ahead, and as a result got his teammate Scarfy killed in the process. For starters, Ganta shouldn't have given all of his candy to Cool Guy. That was unbelievably stupid. I mean, he could have kept one, and we could have at least stopped by the kitchen or even a damn vending machine on the way to the Undertaker's headquarters. As for getting to take our candy aside, Ganta should have also eaten before his next fight, as we already talked about this. Remember the golden rule: the better the blood sugar we got, the better the butcher we are. You know what? I'm pissed at everyone, guys. We could have at least tried asking for Cool Guy to help us, like I said earlier, or even Yo's batshit crazy sister, who we ran into right before we got into the Undertaker's headquarters. And speaking of which, this was the perfect opportunity for Ganta and his pals to grab weapons from the Undertakers as they took some of them out. And this way we could have saved up some of our powers for the main bad guy, Rockstar himself. And Ganta did everything right with Rockstar, somehow pulling a finishing move out of nowhere. But what I would have done is violently push Shiro into Rockstar right as I took out my Ganta gun, using her body as a shield of meat, so to speak, preventing Rockstar from getting me with his guitar gun before blasting both Shiro and Rockstar away, killing both of them in the process. Cold, heartless, and totally not necessary. I love it. With Rockstar dead, white-haired girl and Ganta gather around Scarfy as he gives Ganta his candy before dying. Shiro asks him if he plans to escape with white-haired girl and the rest of the dead men, but Ganta tells her that he can't leave her, a friend, behind. The rest of the dead men escape as Ganta and Shiro sit on top of the prison building, looking out onto the skyline as Shiro sings a familiar song. Shocked, Ganta realizes that it's the same creepy melody that he first heard at school, right before his classmates were brutally murdered. But he lets his suspicions slide, showing us just how whipped Ganta really is.
And if you don't want to be wrapped around Shiro's fingers like a tasty ring pop, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and check out the How to Beat playlist.